Today, we are diving into a really cool piece of research that asks a simple question, but finds an answer that could be a huge deal for solar power.
So what if I told you that a single microscopic layer could completely revolutionize a solar cell's performance? Well, that's exactly the question a team of researchers in Nigeria decided to find out.
The whole world is in this constant race for better, cleaner energy. And with solar power, it always comes down to two big things: cost and efficiency. Your standard silicon cells, they work great, but they can be pretty pricey to make. That's why scientists are so interested in these things called thin film technologies, especially ones using a material called cadmium telluride. They're cheaper. But the challenge has always been, how do we get more juice out of them? And that brings us to what's essentially a head-to-head competition. We're going to break down a study that put two different designs of a cadmium telluride solar cell against each other. Think of it like a championship fight for the future of thin film solar. So, let's meet our two fighters in this scientific showdown. In one corner, you've got the established, traditional design, and in the other, a new challenger who's hiding a secret weapon. Okay, on the left, we have our incumbent, the Schottky barrier solar cell. And on the right, the challenger, the Homo-Heterojunction solar cell. Now just look at their makeup. They seem almost identical, layer for layer. But the challenger has one tiny thing that's different. See if you can spot it.
And that single difference, that one extra layer, that's what this entire experiment is about. It's a really small change that the researchers thought could have a massive impact on how well the cell works.
And there it is. That's the secret weapon. It's a single super thin layer of something called p-type cadmium telluride. They just slipped it in right before the final gold layer. So the big question is, what does this little layer actually do? Well, to get what's going on, we need to talk about one key idea: series resistance. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like electrical friction. Or even better, a traffic jam for electricity. The more resistance you have, the more choked up the flow of power gets. So for a solar cell, you want that resistance to be as low as humanly possible.
So the theory the researchers were working with was this. What if adding that tiny p-CdTe layer acts like a super lubricant? What if it could just clear the traffic jam and slash that series resistance, letting way more electricity flow right through?
It's a great theory, right? But did it actually work? Well, it's time for the performance showdown. The researchers went ahead, they built both types of cells, and they put them through their paces. Let's see what the numbers say.
Okay, first up, let's look at the series resistance for the original cell, the incumbent. When the light hit it, it measured 2.6 kiloohms. That is a pretty significant electrical traffic jam.
And now for the challenger. With that one extra layer, it came in at just 0.37 kiloohms. Wow, that is a massive drop, nearly 7 times less resistance. The hypothesis was spot on.
So what does all that reduced friction actually get you in terms of power? Well, think about that traffic analogy again. When you clear the highway, more cars can get through, faster. Same idea here. The short-circuit current jumped from 27 up to 38. And we also got a nice little boost in the open-circuit voltage. Both of those are telltale signs of a much better solar cell.
But of course, the number that really matters, the final score, is the overall efficiency. How much of that sunlight is actually getting turned into electricity we can use? The original cell, it managed 4.91%, but the challenger, a whopping 7.39%. That is over a 50% jump in performance, all because of one tiny extra layer.
So yeah, this is a clear-cut win for the new design. But what does it really mean in the grand scheme of things? Why did that one layer make such a huge difference?
Let's just hear it straight from the researchers. They put it very simply in their conclusion. Adding that p-CdTe layer flat out enhances the cell efficiency. It just fundamentally made the electronics of the device work better.
So, let's just recap the win. The challenger took home the prize because that one simple layer created a much smoother highway for electricity. It absolutely slashed that electrical friction, which let more current flow, it bumped up the voltage, and all of that led to that huge leap in efficiency.
And here's why this is such a big deal. The way they built these cells is a technique that's known for being pretty cheap. So what this research has done is give us a blueprint for a potentially inexpensive, simple little tweak in the manufacturing process that can make the next wave of thin-film solar cells way more powerful.
And the story isn't even over. The team behind this is already hard at work trying to fine-tune this new design. They think they can squeeze out even more efficiency, making these cells an even more attractive option in the solar market.
It's just a really powerful reminder, isn't it? Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs don't come from completely reinventing everything. Sometimes it's just one clever, perfectly placed layer. It really leaves you wondering what other tiny changes are out there, just waiting to be discovered, that could unlock the next massive leap forward in clean energy.